Hello, hello. Welcome back, Dave. Glad to have you with us.
Oh, it is so glad. I'm so glad to be here. I can't talk today. I don't know what's gone on. Cat's got my tongue, I guess.
Well, Dave, when we start the show, there's a little button that says go live. And as soon as I hit go live, I look over and I'm ready to hit the red button to go live. And I realized I almost hit end broadcast. So we're kind of on the same wavelength this morning.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but hey, hopefully we can get through the other 30 minutes much better than the first 30 seconds.
Well, Dave, I'm so glad that you're with us because, as always, we're here talking about retirement, diving into all the different topics in retirement, and really trying to break down all the questions that come in. And as we talk about this, we get thousands and thousands of questions. And I really like this section of what we do every week because when people come on, they're here because they really have that need and that help, and they've probably gone to other people, they've talked to their friends, but they just kind of get stuck. And I'm hoping that this is kind of that little wiggle spot that helps them move on.
I agree with you. It's a fun time to be able to get out here and answer these questions and really to know that people have a resource to go to. That's another thing I see all the time is very difficult to find someone that's got the broad range of knowledge that we've been able to establish inside of our company over our existence and to be able to share that with other people to help them get into better positions.
And if you are here live, welcome to the show. As always, you can go ahead and submit your question live on Facebook or YouTube. Go ahead and get your question in. And what we do is I put together a series of questions with our team, and then what we do is we'll go ahead and put your questions in the mix if we can squeeze those in. And we really encourage you to get those questions in. And even if it's not the topics we have today, because I know, Dave, we are talking about Roth. Roth is the name today, and I think that's something that we're really going to dive into. But if it's something on Medicare, Social Security, long-term care, elder abuse, I mean, all of these things, go ahead and throw them in there and let's see if we can have a good discussion with those today. And if you're on replay, feel free to send those at retirementriskadvisors.com/contact. And then that way you'll be able to submit a question that we can get on a future show. So Dave, with all of that, what do we have before we get started today?
Yeah, not much on my side, nothing too exciting, just plugging along. Kids are back in school. We're trying to get a schedule down. And the basketball season starts up in October. We're getting excited about that. We do have a big event tomorrow night we're going to for the Grizzlies. One of my favorite events of the year is going to their games. But other than that, not much.
And I do want to remind you that we do have our flagship webinar, Getting Safely Through Retirement. And that is one that we have today, Dave. Actually, looking at the schedule, it looks like it's today at 3 o'clock. And I would love to have you join us. I mean, obviously, you're going to be there, Dave, but I'd love to have those who are with us join us for this webinar because it is it is our premier top webinar that I can't tell you enough great things about it.
Yeah, 3 to 5 Central Time today. Going to be a great opportunity to learn the basics of the risk facing your retirement and why over half of America is running out of money and what you can do to not be one of those. Always want to be on the other half of those that are dying broke.
All right, Dave, well, let's dive into our questions. Like I said, I've got a whole handful of questions here. So let me get my first one up here by Glenn. And this one is, do I pay taxes when I do a Roth conversion? And before I have you tell me, Dave, just because I'm going to have people ask me this, but what is a Roth conversion?
Yeah, great question, CR. When we look at a Roth conversion, it's converting assets out of a tax deferred account into a tax free account, moving money that you're going to pay taxes on at some point in the future and saying, I'm willing to eliminate my federal, state, local business partner today, pay the taxes today on the money that's being transferred over, and then allow that money to grow tax free throughout the rest of my life. So that partially obviously answers Glenn's question on taxes. Yeah, that's the benefit of this. Now, when you look at the 1970s, let's say if you were doing these conversions and tax rates were 70%, yeah, it wouldn't have made a lot of sense. They weren't available till 1997, so you couldn't have even done it back then. But if you're in a 70% tax bracket, now we're in a 37, well, who wants to pay that tax early if taxes are going to go down? But when you are in our environment where we're at a 37% top bracket, top economists are saying taxes have to double in order to solve our economic problems. Yeah, I want to take that risk off the table, get it paid now, and get myself where I really need to be on the path to a safe and secure retirement.
Dave, we look at this too. I'm going to ask you one of these questions because I know this is going to come in our comments if I don't. But when we get this associated with this, with the Roth, what about a backdoor Roth IRA? Because those things come, it almost seems like I get that question hand in hand with some of these Roth questions we get.
Yes, part of the problem with the Roth accounts is they have income limits. You make too much money, you can't put money in to an IRA, not a 401k. But you make too little money, you can't put money into a Roth IRA or 401k. So you've got this opportunity out there for some of you that can do what's called a backdoor Roth IRA, where you're putting money into your traditional IRA and then moving it over, doing the conversion into a Roth account. So you get the money put inside of there that each year as you go forward. But understand, in order to do this, you cannot have other assets in your regular IRA account. So please do not do this type of transaction if you've got a bunch of other IRA money, because it's not going to work out tax wise the way you think it will. And you're going to have some basis issues you're going to have tracked for the rest of your life.
So, Dave, am I safe to say that before converting, I mean, I don't want to say all your funds, but converting your funds into a Roth IRA, make sure you know what's involved?
Yeah, absolutely. And you really want advisors' help, because we use software to run calculations to figure out what the right amount to convert is. I talked to someone not too long ago, and I get there's two sides of us. There's the emotional side, and then there's the side of us that's probably saying, hey, it's a right or wrong decision. But oftentimes our emotions drive our right or wrong decisions. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily that put us in a horrible position, but there would have been better strategies we could have used had we got our emotions out of the way. Well, his emotions were so high, he moved about $4 or $5 million into a Roth IRA in 1 year. Well, there was no need to do that. There was an opportunity for him to have waited for multiple years to do the conversions. Now, yeah, he still probably would have got himself up in the 37% bracket, but he had the 15, the 22, the 24, 32. I mean, he had all these other brackets he could have used each year if he would have done it. But again, obviously with that amount of money, he's in a position that he's not going to die broke. He's going to have a good retirement, but definitely could have used some advice there to help him save some taxes he didn't have to pay.
And Dave, with that, let me jump over to my next one from Nancy. What is the biggest difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA?
It's all about the way they're taxed. And understand too, there's a big misconception out there. In fact, I went the rounds with an individual not too long ago that tried to convince me somehow there was a time value or present value benefit of a Roth if taxes, or of traditional if taxes didn't change. Folks, this is only a tax play. You got to understand, if taxes are 30% today and they're 30% 10 years from now, it doesn't matter which of these accounts you put that money into. The math all works out the same. But if you're in a situation where you're like I am, that believes taxes are going up, hey, you want to pay it now. If it goes up 1%, you saved 1%. If it goes up 10, you save 10. If you're in an environment where you think taxes are going to be lower in the future, which I don't see, any situation where that happens, excluding maybe your own, if you're got high income right now and you're going to live off nothing in retirement. But if it's going to go down, it makes sense to keep it in the traditional account.
Dave, if we have, I'm trying to figure out how to word this, but if we're potentially in a lower bracket due to lower income, how do we justify and make sure that this works if we're trying to get into this?
Yeah, we do a lot of modeling through our planning to figure out what that's going to look like over time. Now, part of our side is adding those increased rates. Again, we may look at it right now and say, well, I'm in a 32% bracket now. I'm going to be in 22. That's a 10% savings. Well, what happens if taxes double as they say they will? Now you're in a 44% bracket, so you're not better off. But another one, CR, that many people overlook, the deductions you have during your working years, for most of you, they're gone in your retirement years. So although your gross incomes come down, your taxable income many times has gone up. And a lot of it's because many of you have been putting high dollars into your tax deferred accounts going into retirement. I mean, you could put $54,000 as a married couple into those accounts to reduce your taxable income. And then you get into retirement, that's gone. All of a sudden you've got a whole different tax bracket.
And Dave, as you talked about it here, you can overfund, meaning that you're not using your money in the right buckets.
Absolutely. Very critical that we look at where the buckets are filled, how they're filled, what's inside of them. Again, this is the problem as we look out there. We go through a process and we think it's as simple as average rates of return, inflation rates, distribution rates. There are so many more things that go into appropriate planning. And unfortunately, most of us don't have the software to be able to do it, or a brain to be able to create Excel sheets that would allow us to do these calculations. And so we need software to help us many times figure out the appropriate amounts in the bucket, what buckets should be liquidated first. And by doing that, it's amazing how much longer this money can last.
Well, Dave, I'm going to switch gears just a little. I'm going to bring in a question from Gavin. How can I use a life insurance retirement plan to fund my retirement?
So, a number of ways, I guess, or a number of reasons you might look at it. Now, from funding it, you're going to have to use taxable assets, so money that you've already paid taxes on, to be able to put inside of here. Now, what we probably need to talk more about is why would you want to do that? Life insurance for most people in retirement is not what they want to have. Most of us drop our term insurance as we're going into retirement, don't really see a need for permanent insurance. But as we look at it from a retirement standpoint, permanent life insurance can bring great benefits. One's tax-free growth and tax-free distributions. Many, especially CPAs we work with, they sold their practice, they sold their building that their practice was in. They've got millions of dollars that they have in a taxable bucket. It can be a way to get assets into a tax-free environment. You can pull money out tax-free. You can use it as a long-term care insurance policy to help with a long-term care event. You can use it to transfer assets at a discount. So a lot of ways to do it, but it's all got to come out of your taxable bucket. You're not going to be able to use the 401k or IRA accounts themselves to be able to do this.
So, Dave, what if we don't have this life insurance retirement plan right now, and that's something we're looking at? What's the best option for us?
Well, the best option truly is go through a planning process to see exactly where the pieces land. So often we want to put a Band-Aid on it. You go in and you go into a doctor even. All of a sudden you have one little sign of something that needs to be handled. And so you go in and you get a Band-Aid to cure that. But if you're not going to the root cause, it's just you're gonna continue to have issues. Maybe you didn't ever even solve the real issue. This is what we're seeing with these plans. Oftentimes, people hear what we talk about, and they go, "Oh, that sounds great. I want one of those." Like you're at Walmart and just picking stuff off the shelf. And it's like, no, yes, you may need it, but let's put it into a plan and make sure you understand it. Let's make sure it's appropriate for your situation. And as we can do that, what we find is we can really help people get into a position they feel comfortable with, that they feel some certainty to what things might look like for the future retirement.
Dave, some of the questions we get on the show, I mean, I've got even some coming up, but they're always asking what the best advice is for somebody that is 5 years out from retirement, 1 year out from retirement. Is the life insurance retirement plan, is that still something they can even look at when you're getting that close?
Absolutely. So up until age 70, I have not myself had any policies for anyone over age 70 that I would recommend. We've run some illustrations at times just to see what the insurance companies are bringing back. But one of the requirements of these they've got to be low fee. And we don't want the insurance to be so expensive that it kills your investment growth.
Mhm.
So, and this is another thing, CR, as we go through here, oftentimes what we talk about can come across as simple. Oh, it's a permanent insurance, an index policy. Well, folks, it's like buying a car. There are so many different variations out there that if you're wanting to go haul plywood and you say, oh, I just need a car. Yeah, they said their car hauled the plywood, and you go buy a Prius. Well, you're not going to put a sheet of plywood in the back of there. You need to understand that, yeah, you've got to have a pickup truck that's got an 8-foot bed if you don't want it to hang out, and all of these requirements. It's the same thing with what we do. You go to your insurance advisor, say, oh, Dave Hall talked about the index product. It's a life insurance retirement plan. I want that. Well, if the advisor doesn't know what they're doing, they're going to sell you the wrong vehicle to get the benefits that you're trying to get out of the products.
If you are here with us live and you do happen to have a picture with a Prius and a sheet of plywood, please send that in. I would absolutely love to see that. Even if it's strapped on top, boy, that would make my day. Oh boy. Well, Dave, let me keep going here. Alexis is asking, which is better, long-term care insurance or a life insurance policy with a long-term care rider?
Yeah. So when you look at it, personally, I like the life insurance with the long-term care rider, but we call it a chronic illness rider. I'm not wanting to buy that long-term care policy, but it really comes down to what you're trying to accomplish and what you can qualify for. Understand both of these products aren't something you're just going to go off the shelf or go to the drive-through window and say, hey, I want number 3. Go ahead and give that to me. You're going to have to go through underwriting. They're going to have to do some health screening and testing to see what you qualify for. for. So in theory, we want the life insurance with the chronic illness rider because economically it works better, it performs better, it allows us to have more freedom in what we do there. But it may be a situation for the right individual where, again, with their emotions and their facts and their circumstances, they're saying, hey, I just want that long-term care insurance rider. I want the daily benefit that's going to come out of there, want it to last X amount of time. And for their situation, is going to work okay for that.
Dave, the thing I love about doing this show is you practice what you preach. It's one of those things that as we come on and talk about all these different products, all these different plans, you're always, not only are you part of it, but you're actively doing them. And the reason I bring that up is because as all of those viewers know that have been here with us, they know that you had your kidney transplant, and that was something that you guys have talked very openly about, those in your family who have struggled with this. And one of the things you talk about a lot of times with this is long-term care insurance, and when you purchased it and why you purchased it early, because you knew something like this was going to happen. And I would love to have you just kind of talk about that for a minute, because I really find that very inspirational for us that are constantly following your journey.
Yeah, when you look at my background, and for those of you that understand it, I came from a very poor family. We did not have much. It was very much a struggle through my whole life. And so finally, as I got older and started making money and got my family into a different position, I absolutely realized the worst thing that could ever happen to me is to lose all that. Not that I couldn't come back, not that I couldn't go out and use my brain to recreate income and those things, but it's like, hey, the stupidest thing I can do, if I work so hard, put so much effort into trying to get myself where I am financially stable, the stupidest thing I could ever do is put myself at risk to lose all that. Now, we can't cover every risk, but so as a result, very early on in my career, I started buying these products far before I knew what I know now, to say, okay, I see some risk issues out there. I'm going to buy disability insurance, and I've used it. Hey, I'm going to buy a long-term care policy, which I have on my wife's life, because she may need that. Hey, I'm going to buy this life insurance with a chronic illness policy for myself, so I have that available when I go through those retirement years. So again, all designed to say, last thing I want to do is to have everything perfect and then have it fall apart. And I guess it comes back, CR, from my days of Boy Scout. Be prepared as you go through the scouting program. You're a scout, you become an Eagle Scout, all these things that really sticks with you as you go throughout life, of saying, hey, why would I give up all this if I don't have to? And I can prevent it by just taking simple steps to not make it be this way.
And Dave, thanks for sharing that, because a lot of times it's a little bit harder when we get more personal. But I want people to know that this is a very important subject for us, especially in retirement, because this isn't something that we just kind of throw our hat in the ring and say, yeah, let's just see if retirement works. It's something that we're hoping that everybody within our team is all practicing, and everybody here is really taking that advice. And that goes for you that are here with us live or on replay. This is not to come on and just say, boy, that was a great show, or boy, that really gave me some insight. This is really to say, hey, wherever you are in life right now, it's time to start doing something. And Dave, I like that you said a lot of times, you don't have to do this, but you kind of went out there and picked some products that maybe you didn't know much about, but at least you did something. Now, I'm not encouraging people to go out there and willy-nilly pick stuff, but I'm saying be thoughtful, plan this, and make sure you get into the situation where you can move forward.
And don't let your past cripple you, folks. Again, if you look at your life, many of us, I've made many mistakes with my own retirement. I bought variable life insurance policies right before the crash of 2000. I wasted tens of thousands of dollars on a policy that ended up blowing up, again, because I didn't know and understand what I know now. So please, just because you made bad decisions in the past, maybe you made them uneducated, don't let that cripple you from continuing to make decisions going forward. I see far too many people, hey, I lost money in the stock market, I'm never going to put money back in there. I bought a bad insurance policy, I'm never buying another insurance policy again. It's not about not doing these things. It's about better educating yourselves and learning. And then from there, being able to succeed and grow with the right products and the right knowledge that can help us get where we need to be.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Well, Dave, let's move on. Let me get my next one here from Scott. What are the main factors that determine my taxability in retirement?
Yeah, it's all going to come down to your income. What's your taxable income? That's going to include obviously all of your earned income that's coming in, all your passive income that's coming in there, but also your Social Security. Something that people don't often realize is if you've got provisional income, it's going to be taxed. So this is an area that we've got to look at what your income is, what buckets it's in. If you've got a taxable and tax deferred bucket, you're going to pay tax at some point. If you got tax free, hey, you've already paid the tax and now it's your money to keep and be able to do with what you want.
David, you kind of hit on something I wanted to talk about, but if we're talking tax-free, this is irrelevant then of what we're talking about here for Scott. And that's something I really hope that as people are getting into this, they're realizing the value now before the taxes go up. And then you're trying to kind of solve this a lot later.
Yeah. And the other thing you need to remember, and I see this a lot lately, doing something still helps. So again, we oftentimes get where someone looks at their retirement assets, say, oh, I'm never going to get into Roth fully. So they don't do any Roth conversions. They say, well, if I can't get to where I want to be, I'm going to do nothing. Well, part of the way down that path still is not a bad choice. I mean, if you can take some of that risk off the table now, you can get yourself in a better position. You can protect X amount of dollars, no matter what it is. Realize in retirement, all of that helps in getting us where we want to be. So again, just because you don't think you can do a whole something doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Very, very well said. And I want to remind those that are here live, I see you guys in there watching. If you have questions, don't be shy. Jump on and go ahead and submit your question. We are live on Facebook and YouTube, and so we'd like to be able to squeeze some of those questions in. Dave, it's really fun to get so many questions. Do you have to know everything? Do you have to know every topic in retirement in order to make this work?
I don't. I wish I did. I obviously know a lot. I've spent a lot of time studying. It's been a passion of mine, and there's a lot of information in there. But we do often get questions that I've not come across. The great thing is about knowledge and where we are today is a lot of it comes back down to how quick can you find those answers, and do you know where to go to find those answers? Do you know where to go to find those answers? And really, that's what we are. I was talking to one of our staff earlier today, saying it's so nice to be in an environment where we can talk to people and really help them with no matter what it is they want, whether it's my knowledge of being able to give them answers, whether it's our partners that we're able to connect them with that can give them the solutions. Really nice to not have to get through a meeting and go, I wish I knew that. Hopefully I'll go try to find someone that understands Social Security. Yeah, what? Never dealt with elder abuse before. Good luck. Hope you can get your money back. I mean, these type of things that we can help solve that really it makes my day better and hopefully makes the lives of those we come in contact with better.
It just makes that I don't want to say a one-stop shop, but it really makes that when you go in and you can get information if you're going in there for, a Roth account, and then all of a sudden you come out with Social Security and Medicare information, because that does not happen.
Yeah, and they all overlap. This is the other thing. Another plan we were doing this morning. Again, someone came in wanting to really look at annuity because they wanted more guaranteed income in retirement. But in that meeting, they didn't want to extend out their Social Security and wait until they got 70 to take those benefits. Well, yeah, that's one of the smartest things you can do. And I asked them, I'm like, are you open to waiting? And they said, no, I absolutely am not. Well, I'm going to present them an idea coming back and saying, well, let me see if I can't change your mind when you see the math behind it, because one of the best annuities I can give you is the free one the government offers that all you got to do is wait a little bit more time. I mean, obviously you paid money into it. You just got to wait a few more years, let it season. That's going to be your best option. So we need to make sure we're taking it all together. Again, you start putting pieces on this chessboard that don't fit in with what you're trying to accomplish, it's never going to turn out the way you'd hoped.
And Dave, a little bit earlier, you talked about different products or different decisions we've made in the past that have made us scared from moving forward. Annuities is one of those that a lot of people said, well, somebody in the past had a bad experience, or somebody had a bad product. And what you're saying is there's lots of variable options with the annuities. There's things that we have to make sure that it's going to work for them already.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really understanding what's going on, trusting the individual you're with, understanding the risk and how they fall. I've had way more people, honestly, that I've met in my lifetime that have lost money in the market and other investments than I ever have in annuities. Even if you take all the variable annuities and the ones that I've seen people lose money in, hey, I've seen more money lost in bad businesses, the market itself during crash periods of time where people then pulled the money out, never got it back, real estate crashes. I mean, we saw 2008, everybody and their dogs walking away from their home. But it didn't stop them from going back and buying another piece of real estate. And again, they were wiser, hopefully, didn't leverage themselves. They learned from it. And this is what we're trying to talk about in retirement. But again, remember, these are just tools that may work. An annuity is not a guaranteed tool that, if we're out there saying, hey, you got to buy this and everyone's got to have one of these. That's the last thing that we want. We want a tool that'll work. And if it happens to be that tool, let's put it in the shed and let's make sure when retirement comes and it's time to harvest all your funds, you got everything there that you need to get there.
Well, Dave, let's move on. My question here from Robert is, should I contribute to my 401k if I have other retirement accounts? And to note there that he also did let us know that that his employer does offer a 2% match.
Yeah, so a number of things we've got to look at with those 401ks. Number one, I would say yes, up to the 2% match. We want to get that free money. So absolutely. But beyond there, there's a number of things we've got to look at. What investment options do we have inside of that 401k? What's the cost of that 401k and those investment options? And is there an ability to distribute money during your working years? Does it allow you to transfer money out of there during those working years? And if it doesn't, you may not want to get a bunch of money tied up into a 401k that may have bad investments that you can't do a whole lot with. So there's a lot more questions that got to be answered before I'd say yes or no for you. But it's going to require some homework at looking at your 401k account and see if it's got in-service distributions and these type of things.
Dave, what mistakes do you see people making when they're getting into the 401k or they're starting a business for the first time and this is offered from their employer?
Yeah, so a couple of things that we see. One, the biggest one is they don't take advantage of the match. I mean, that's number one. Far too many people are leaving that money on the table. This is free money your employer's offering. Now, again, you've got to figure out economically if you can afford it, but it seems pretty foolish if we can. And again, if you can't save 2%, you're never going to get to retirement. The reality of it is we've got to have money set aside to be able to get there. So that's number one. Number two, not understanding the way their plan works. Again, we see a lot of people, especially as they get older, that love their job, have built up hundreds of thousands of dollars in these accounts, and then they want to get some risk off the table, look at other investments. Maybe they want to take taxes off the table. And if there's no in-service distributions, they have no way of getting this money out and even rolling it over without quitting or getting to an age where they retire. So, all things that happen that it's just done because people don't even realize they need to ask the question.
And Dave, talk about asking questions. If somebody has a 401k and then they have a Roth option, but they never ask, is that something you would encourage people to maybe even go to their HR and see what other options are available?
Yeah, understand that some of these things that we're talking about here, to amend a 401k plan for most employers, not going to be outrageously expensive. Now, it could be as cheap as $500, could be as expensive maybe as $1,500, but it shouldn't be more than that. When we look at the benefits that the employer can not only offer to you, but to others inside the company, and especially if you're a small employer and you're the owner, may be well worth making those adjustments to the plan to provide these additional benefits for all of the employees. So could be a great one where you're coming on behalf of the whole company and saying, hey, employer, I noticed this in my retirement that's going to help me. Is there a way that we can change the way the plan's structured to give everyone else these same benefits, including myself?
Very well said. Well, Dave, I wanted to save this last one for our end here. I really want your opinion because this one, I'll just read it for you here. Sarah's wondering, should I file for Social Security early?
Generally, no. And again, this is a hard thing about the questions we answer is we can't specifically answer, these type of questions for someone without getting some back history on it. But what we find, 96% of people do not maximize their Social Security benefits. This is hard to believe. We pay our whole lives into a program that's going to give us money throughout the rest of our retirement, and we blow it. 96% of us make the wrong decision. And the thing that's bad about this, they've run the math. I was looking at some statistics not too long ago. Average person, we take all those 96% of the Americans, millions and millions of people, average amount that's left on the table, $111,000. See, we're not leaving $5,000 on the table. We're not leaving $10,000 on the table over our lifetime. We are leaving thousands of dollars. And that's usually because people claim early, or than they should. So, and Sarah, if I were to say blanket statement, no, you shouldn't claim early, but very hard for me to blanket something where, again, maybe you've got young children still in the home that you could get child benefits off of there. Again, maybe you've got enough other assets. It doesn't matter. Maybe you've got, like my parents, you got health issues. It's like, hey, my chances of getting to age even 80 are pretty much nil. I don't really see how that's ever going to happen to where I'd even break even. Yeah, then we want to look at other strategies.
And Dave, I look at this too because we have many conversations about this. But if we're claiming early, I mean, there's so many different situations. So I don't want to take that away from anyone. But if you're claiming early versus later, and there's an extra $500 a month that you have just kind of left because you felt like, well, I'm just going to take it early because it's just what I want to do. There's a lot of people who just dive into this, and I love E-Ring's comment, Dave. I thought this was very appropriate. He said, Sarah, as a CPA, should know that answer.
Yeah, so let me comment on that, and I appreciate that. And from a general public side, I get that yes, they should, and I guess even as humans, we should be able to figure out this answer. We should know, but understand one of the big challenges. I had the benefit throughout my career of being on the general public side. If someone looks at a CPA, they often believe that all we do is taxes and this type of stuff. We're dealing with people's money, we're doing taxes. Well, 60, 70% of the industry, they're doing audits. They're never even talking about retirement. They're doing financial statements. They're looking at balance sheets, stuff that doesn't even deal with any of this. And that was one of the things I used to laugh at, as many of my friends, if we're at church groups and stuff, they're like, Dave, I had another person come up and ask me a tax question once they heard I was a CPA. It's like, I don't even do my own taxes. That's outsourced to you or somebody else that's actually doing that type of work. So again, from a general public, yes. And from a general oversight, yes. But please, all of us remember, CPA is a broad industry that covers a lot of things, and you can get very pigeonholed to where you just don't really know certain things that maybe you would expect a CPA to know.
Yeah, very, very well said, Dave. And I appreciate that. And again, these questions, some of them are very easy, but very hard because again, unless you have the background, this is very difficult to go through and give somebody a blanket statement because everybody's retirement looks different. Everybody's situation is different, but we're here to help guide you and at least get you to take action and get you through and making better decisions that will help you get to a better and safer, secure retirement.
Yeah, and the thing we need to remember is every action causes a reaction. Again, these are things in my planning that if we're doing it and with our advisor, again, you think, okay, I'm going to do a conversion, and that's all great and wonderful from a tax side. Well, maybe it created Medicare to go up because you went over the threshold. Yeah, maybe you're under a level of age where you're going to have your Social Security. You make extra money at your job. Think, oh, I'll go get a job. It's going to help my retirement. Well, then it cuts your Social Security down, and you have to delay that. So again, you've got to understand in retirement, we're having to juggle a lot of pieces, and that at times can become very challenging. And for advisors, it becomes challenging because you have to understand the whole system to be able to do it. And really why we use chess pieces, it's why it really is a chess game. Again, you've got to look at the whole board because very easy. If you don't, you make the wrong move or two, it's over. That game's done. But if you can structure it out correctly, you can get your pieces spread out where they can be, have a really good chance of winning the game.
Yep. Definitely agree. Well, Dave, we're over on time. I really appreciate your time today coming on and answering these questions. And I know you're going to be here next week, but I'm just excited that we have you every week to come on and get these questions answered. And I want to encourage those who have questions and didn't get them in today, please go ahead and get those to at our website, retirementriskadvisors.com, and click on the Contact Us. We'll be happy to get those, or hit us up on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. I mean, we'll be happy to get those questions and get them on our show. But Dave, thanks so much for being here and answering all these questions.
You're welcome.
And everyone else, thank you again for being here. And we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Again, we're always here at 11 a.m. Central Time, and we'll see you then.